Episode 2, Blood Rights. Chapter 1, Phobos Exchange.
The shuttle dropped into the shadow of Phobos like a thrown nail vanishing into sand. Hull plates trembled as the pilot threaded them through crooked traffic, trader skiffs, corporate shuttles, private haulers flying dark to look smaller than they were. The exchange ring clung to the crater's lip, a necklace of tired modules welded to something older and less forgiving. People came here to buy what polite towns wouldn't sell in daylight.
Jacob sat with his hands flat on his knees, eyes steady. Riley bounced one leg fast enough to rattle the seat in front. Maeve watched the window, cataloging tail numbers the way other people counted prayer beads. Lyra looked nowhere and everywhere, listening to a place under the floor of the world. "Remember the charter," Maeve said. "We purchase sentences, not men. 10 winters. Ledger posted monthly. Medical, food, shelter, pay. No collars live under our roof."
They don't live anywhere, Jacob said. They die. The docking claw coughed them into a tunnel that smelled like burnt rubber and cheap disinfectant. Inside the exchange, it was crowded and quiet. You could tell who wore a badge and who wore a gun by how comfortable they seemed with their backs exposed. A sign on the far wall glowed in broken green, Sentence Creditor Hall. Beneath it, a smaller sign in corporate gray, Xenocorp Compliance Kiosk. Riley spat on the floor. They put a kiosk in a slave market. Maeve's jaw tightened. Don't call it that. If a man can't take his collar off, Riley said, what do you call it? Cole said nothing. He watched the line, thin, thick, scared, dead-eyed. Collars hummed at their throats, LEDs pulsing like cold blood. Each band bore a stamp, company, county, private. He'd worn a different kind of collar once, a captain's word on a station where orders came cheap and lives came cheaper. He'd refused a SEAL order and watched 2 men die anyway, then watched his father's face when the news reached Mars. That was the first thing he ran from. The second was how right Jacob had looked not to trust him. Lyra's head tilted a degree. Beneath the floor, the ring's old steel sang out of tune. She didn't wince. She adjusted, like a musician finding the note the world insisted on playing. A woman behind a cage smiled with her mouth, not her eyes. Name? Jacob McCallister, Jacob said. He set his palm against the reader. An old scar made the lines look like a river that had changed course too many times to be trusted. Purpose? Sentence exchange. Charter 48B. Clause read. Her eyes flicked to Maeve's tablet. Verification? Maeve held it up. Filed. Approved. Audited last winter. Unique conditions? The woman asked, bored. No slavers, no abusers, no war criminals, Jacob said. Lifers only. 10 winters clean gets a pardon. You put it on paper, I put it under my door. The woman's eyebrows rose a fraction. Lifers only. They've got nothing left to sell me but their word, Jacob said. That's the only thing I can spend twice. The clerk stamped 3 forms with a machine that sounded like a throat clearing. Lot 2, Ring B. They walked into heat and noise. Lot 2 was a warehouse pretending to be a courtroom. A man with a gavel and a microphone read charges like a preacher reads sins. Behind him, a wall of steel mesh. Behind the mesh, 20 figures with collars bright as coins in sun. A handler tapped the mic. Next docket, Hallen, Cade, human, life sentence, murder, 2 counts, falsified ship logs, aggravated assault on corporate officers. A rough man stepped forward behind the mesh. Not big, not mean-looking. His eyes were still. Context, Maeve said. The handler glanced at his screen, irritated. Orbital Marine. Dishonorable discharge. Shipboard incident. Refused order during riot suppression. 2 corporate security officers dead. Refused order to do what? Jacob asked. Seal the maintenance bay, the handler said. Overpressure would've. He shrugged. It was a bad day. Who wrote it bad? Jacob asked. Same men who wear the pins, Riley muttered. Jacob's eyes never left Hallen's. You know my name? Everyone on Mars knows your name, Hallen said, voice hoarse and flat, like he'd slept 3 hours a night for 10 years. They say you don't keep callers live. They talk too much, Jacob said. Would you wear a dead band 10 winters and hold a line that will break your back? Every day until the last, Hallen said. A tiny nod, a pebble falling off a ledge. Mark him. Next docket, Keth of 3, IXO, life sentence, sabotage, collusion, theft of proprietary grid schematics. An insectoid figure stepped into the light. Glossy carapace scuffed white at the edges, 3 delicate manipulator hands folded calm against a chest plate. The collar sat awkwardly above the shoulder ridge where IXO necks hid, LEDs washing the chitin in sick light. Context, Maeve said. Employee at Xenocorp Microgrid, the handler said. Witnessed safety bypasses, filed complaint. Schematics appeared on a competitor's server 2 days later. Callers are cheaper than lawsuits. Keth clicked in 2 registers. I stole nothing, he said. The English came precise and careful. I copied the truth. They punished me for the copy. You hear fences? Jacob asked. Keth's head tilted a fraction. Everyone hears them. Few listen. Jacob smiled without warmth. You'll run mine. Mark him. Rick Shard, the handler said. Goreth, life sentence, riot instigation, assault, multiple counts. Arson. Roik looked like stone given patience and breath, plates under the skin like river rock in a swollen stream. The collar around his neck was an insult. The LEDs winked like flies on a carcass. Context, Maeve said. Labor riot in the gravel pits, the handler said. He lit the company commissary. Reich bared his teeth, which, for his kind, was a smile. We were hungry. You hold a wall, Jacob asked. I hold a mountain, Rick said. Good, Jacob said. I'm short a mountain. They moved faster after that. Orla Ven, surveyor eyes that measured wind in beats per breath. Havel stitch. Korn, hands steady enough to thread a needle in a quake. Tala and Niv, Vithari, who could read the seam between gust and gale and step into it. Bran Jaro, line gunner, rope coiled neat at his belt. Sela Rin, driver with a smile like a dare. Dako Pell, precise to the point of madness. Heshvar, prayer beads carved from dust bison horn, the one thing he'd kept. Fen, ledger. Oru, bookkeeper in a place that hated books. Last, quiet as a shadow, a Nixari with eyes like oil on water. Veil under ash, the handler said, bored. Life sentence, flight from custody, possession of restricted photonics. Context, Maeve said. The handler scrolled, frown deepening. No incident report on file. Redacted, redacted, redacted. Veil said nothing. He held his own gaze the way some men hold a loaded gun, careful, unafraid of its weight. Jacob turned his head slowly toward the glass room above the auction floor. Celine Vera stood there with a corporate advisor and a cup of clean water she didn't drink. Her eyes were on Veil, mouth curved in that small, thoughtful way she wore when a problem was interesting. Jacob looked back at Veil. You want to work? Veil's voice was quiet and liquid. I want to belong. Mark him, Jacob said. The handler glanced up at Selini's box, as if expecting a rule to be made up on the spot. No rule came. He made the mark. They were almost to the ring gate when the crowd thickened and faces turned. News runs faster than law in places like this. "McCallister," a man called, pushing forward with his collar humming bright. "Take me." Jacob didn't stop walking. Name: Gent Pike. Thick wrists, knuckles like old gravel, eyes that wouldn't hold still. Maeve flicked the tablet. "Pit enforcer. Assault at ration lines." "I kept order," Pike said. "I can keep yours." "We don't hire men to hit the thirsty," Jacob said, 2 fingers pointing him out of the gate. "Not you." Pike swallowed a word and stepped back. The crowd closed like a wound learning to heal. Another man slid in, young, hungry, lips cracked from station air. "Rao Dellen, 18 months left. I'll take the ember. I'll press. He swallowed. "I want out." "We take lifers," Jacob said, not unkind. "You still have a door. Walk through it." Maeve tore 2 water tabs and pressed them into the kid's palm. "Drink. Go home." A third shouldered up, restless in his own skin. "Sash Corps, skimmer crew. You want corporate hurt, you want me. We don't hunt trophies, we hold valves." "Same thing some nights," Corps grinned. "Not for us," Jacob said, turning away. A woman with a short crop and a collar sanded dull lifted a hand. "Yara Quell, logistics, 2 counts embezzlement." She grimaced. "I took from men who'd stolen first. You need numbers straight and trucks on time." "Marked as a witness against a comptroller," Maeve said. "Not a lifer." Yara's jaw went stubborn. "You said you buy men. Buy me." "We buy sentences," Jacob said. "You don't need us to belong to yourself. Go keep a promise to someone at home." She stared, then stepped aside, not happy, not hating him either. A badge-wearing pit boss sauntered up with a smile like a man who collects favors. "Tomer Alls, I can deliver bodies that do what they're told." The whole ring knew the name. Jacob's eyes cooled a shade. "You sell men like sacks of lime. You don't speak to me." "You'll wish you had," Alls said. "Not once," Jacob said, and kept moving. The corridor back to the crawler was stale air and metal groans. Cole let the noise settle. Jacob didn't speak. The new dockets crackled in Maeve's grip. Cade fell in behind without being told, counting exits with his eyes. Vale paused at a viewport, watching Phobos roll under them like a scar turned inside out. No speeches. Just the soft clink of collars as men shifted their weight and tried to remember how to breathe without asking permission. At the airlock, the handler called after them. "You know you're buying trouble." "I'm buying men," Jacob said. "Trouble's the change in the bag." Chapter 2. Hand on the Fire. They came home in 2 loads, first crawler rattling up the ridge under late sun, second smudging into dusk. The not yet Ashbourne sat quiet, wrists on knees, shoulders touching without apology. The valley made strangers stand close or walk away. Yard lights hummed low. The oath stone waited by the first pump, a shoulder-high ironstone scarred by tools from a time when men hit rock with steel and called it progress. The pump thumped steady behind it, heartbeat of everything. Hands gathered. Some crossed their arms and watched, measuring. Some looked away until it started, and then they couldn't. Maeve set the ledger on a barrel. Keth rolled out the kill rig, a ceramic plate wired to a box soldered from scrap and something old he wouldn't name. Stitch laid a line of silver alginate on the stone like white flags. Jacob stepped up. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. "Look at the stone. Look at the pump," he said. "That's the heart. If the pump stops, The valley dies. If the stone means nothing, we do. You want to know what you're buying with your next 10 winters? Not glory, not a flag. You're buying breath for people who can't lift a wrench as heavy as your hand. Water for kids who don't know your name. A line in the dirt that says, "Not one step." We are not raiders. We are not hire guns. We are hands. We keep the valves open. We keep the herd moving. We keep the fences singing. We hold a wall so others can sleep. Out there they keep collars live and call it order. Here we kill the hardware and call it what it is. Choice. Control is their creed. Belonging is ours. Freedom is earned. Now hear the rules. You do the work first. Most men know how to kill. Fewer know how to show up in the mud and stay there until the job's done. Be the second kind. You don't break the herd. You don't turn on blood. You don't raise a hand to the weak. No theft, no cruelty, no drink on the line. You miss a mark, you own it. You'll get tired. You'll get scared. You'll keep the wall anyway. You'll be paid, fed, and housed. Stitch will keep you stitched. Maeve will keep the ledger clean where the town can see it. 10 winters in good standing, you walk free with a strip of ground or a dome credit. Reasons for early release, if they ever come, stay between you and this stone. Understand what the band means. After tonight, your collar will be dead, but you'll wear it until freedom. When your term is earned, we take it off in the open at dawn. The valley will see the ring it burned into you on day 1, and they'll know, free and still ours. That ring isn't shame. It's proof you put your hand on the fire and didn't ask another man to do it for you. If you want out, there's no shame. Step back now, eat at my table, work as a hand. But if you stay, if you mean to belong, then say the words with us and press the ember yourself. No press, no oath. Belonging is an act, not a gift. We fight clean. We disable first. We kill only when the line breaks, and there's no other way to hold it. Our trophies are full pumps and quiet nights. I'll make you one promise. I will be there, under floodlight, in dust, at the valve, at the fence. I won't ask you to stand a place I won't stand. If I fall, the code doesn't. The work goes on. You aren't property here. You're not a sentence here. You are the wall we build out of breath and bone and will. If you belong, the valley breathes. If you break, it doesn't. If you understand, step in. Put your hand on the stone. Say the words. Hand on the fire. He touched the oath stone with the open palm of his left hand. The scar there was white and old and deep. Say it. Voices rose, low and uneven, and one. I hold the line. I don't break the herd. I don't turn on blood. Keth set the ceramic paddle on its post. The ember looked like a kitchen relic made sacred by use. It hurts, Jacob said, meeting each gaze. You press it yourself. No press, no oath. Cade Holland stepped first. He set his palm on the ember like pushing a door. He pressed. The dump hit. The collar sang, a high, ugly frequency. Teeth ached. LEDs guttered and died. Cade's jaw clenched, his eyes watered but didn't close. Heat bloomed beneath the band, bit deep. A ring burned into flesh and memory. When it ended, he exhaled once like a man surfacing from a long dive. Stitch was there with saline, a bandage, a pill that melted under the tongue into calm. Jacob's hand came heavy to Cade's shoulder. Belong. Cade stepped back, pale and sweating. He stood. Keth of 3 clicked low and brought his small manipulator hand to the ember. Ceramic hissed against chitin. The collar fought longer, different hardware, coded meaner. Keth made no sound. When the LEDs guttered and died, he touched 2 fingers to the seam and nodded, like he'd tuned a string that had been sharp for years. Belong. Reichshard tested the ember like a weight. When the pain came, he smiled with his teeth. When it left, he laughed once and wiped his eyes with a hand the size of a shovel. Belong! Tala and Niv went together, twin palms, twin breath. Orla's breath stayed even. Stitch didn't need to steady her chin. The yard hum faltered, just a breath, and Bran flinched like a wire. He dropped off the boardwalk and ran. 2 strides, 3, dust kicking, fence seam ahead. Cole moved. Cade cut him off on the left, low and quiet. A dust stalker lifted its head in the scrub as if the night had whistled. Stop, Cade said. Not loud, final. Bran's hands shook. I can't. Then press shaking, Cole told him. Or die running. Bran stared at the seam, then turned. He pressed with his jaw locked and his eyes open. The dump hit. The collar sang. High, ugly. LEDs guttered and died. Stitch caught him when his knees forgot how. Belong. Scylla whispered a curse in a language she hadn't spoken since a smuggler's hold. Daco pressed exactly to the point the tremor wanted, and not a gram more. Hesh bowed his heavy head to the ember like a holy book. Fen stared at his palm a long time, then pressed and sobbed quietly while the lights went out and the old life with them. Vale under ash waited. Keth dimmed the yard lights to almost nothing and shifted the rig to a frequency he whispered in his own tongue. Vale's hand, long fingers, joints too soft for human liking, settled on the ember. The dump hit. No sound, no flinch. When the collar died, a faint iridescence ran around the band like oil taking light and refusing it. Jacob's hand touched his shoulder. Belong. They stood in the yard and listened to the pump. A moth battered itself against the light until it learned the circle of glass was a kind of lie. Stitch's saline dried to salt on 12 throats. The wind came colder, honest. No one thanked anyone. The work of pain is private. The proof of it is not. Cole caught Lyra's eye. Something old moved in her, like a tide turning under rock. He looked away first. Riley let out a breath that almost sounded like a laugh. Most of them know how to kill, he said. Now we teach them how to work. Chapter 3. The Truce Line. At first light, the ranch made its sounds. Gates thumping, sand in bearings, Orla's bolt back-forward back like a metronome. Maeve chalked pump numbers on a board only she could read and rewrote them cleaner. Keth hummed fence notes until the post sang back in tune. Reich boiled coffee so black it felt like a dare. The new Ashbourne ate fast and glanced up between mouthfuls the way men do when they're not sure the table is theirs. Cade pushed them hard without cruelty. A man who had refused to kill where killing was an order knew exactly where to put a foot to keep a line straight. Shields, he said, clipped. Rick, Hesh, front. Human anchors left and right. Don't drift. Drift makes holes. Reich planted the slab, an old skimmer door with 2 grips welded on, into red dirt with the grunt of a man setting a foundation stone. Hesh set his, 2 pieces of junk suddenly a wall. Shock lances low, Cade called. Knees, stalker at the knee doesn't leap. Orla lay belly down behind them, coil rifle tucked into shoulder. Disable first, she whispered. The living can learn. Keth took a fence post apart and put it back together under fire drill noise. Tin tapping, cut pipe clanging, a bad joke, someone crying without sound. He hummed in 3 tones, and when the hum matched the current, nodded once. Stitch moved down the line, checking dressings. If the burn's angry, tell me. If you don't, it gets angrier. Tala and Niv strapped membrane kites and climbed the mesa to catch the morning seam of wind that ran there like an invisible river. When the gust held, they stepped off and let the storm take them. Shadows on a blood sky, trailing thin anchor lines like web. Cade watched their feet. When they stop looking down, he said to no one, "We can feel them." "When's that?" Riley asked, heels itching for it. "When they're too tired to look anywhere else," Cade said, not smiling. Motives ran under the dirt like water. Cade still woke some nights with metal and ash in his mouth. Men sealed in a bay because a colonel wanted clean paperwork. He had refused once. It cost 2 lives, then his own. 10 winters under a dead band felt cheap compared to the interest that memory charged. Keth kept his complaint against Xenocorp like scripture. Line numbers, part numbers, dates. The fence sang true. Humans rarely did. Jacob didn't ask him to sing quietly. That was enough. Reek had starved on a payroll promising calories and delivering fines. Lighting the commissary hadn't been anger. It was arithmetic. Here the math felt different. He held the slab and the line held him. Orla counted breath, 3 in, 5 out. Her father taught her in a shaft where dust stole daylight for 3 days. Disable first, he'd said. The living can learn. She believed him until she couldn't. The rifle helped her choose. Stitch had stolen bandages because he knew what untreated wounds do to a town. The collar came easy after that. He wanted 10 winters and a quiet room where nobody screamed. The oath gave him noise and honest work instead. He took it. Scylla asked engines the questions she didn't trust men to answer. Machines didn't hedge. They turned over or didn't. She drove because roads told the truth. Bran loved a taut line. No philosophy in it. Anchor, pull, retrieve. He'd sold that trick to worse men in worse places. This valley was a chance to use his hands without rotting from the palms up. Fen had cooked books for a boss who smiled too much. He still woke with the taste. Writing names clean on Maeve's board felt like rinsing. He kept rinsing. Hesh's prayer beads clicked when his thoughts ran hot. He believed in 3 things: weight, weather, vows. The slab gave him all 3. Vale had learned to be small because large things cast shadows that drew hunters. The first, belong, had given him edges back. The second would come when the band came off. He wasn't in a hurry. Hank waved from the southern fence. Urgency, not panic. Cade snapped, "Wall!" and the training line became a fighting line in 3 breaths. Dust stalkers slid from scrub like someone poured them there. 5, then 7. The pack didn't charge. It braided. 2 slid left into glare. 3 ghosted the right in dust shadow, the limper dragging them into a false slow. When they came, it was a whip crack from both sides at once. Reich planted the slab, murmuring a prayer. Hesh set his. Beads clicked with breath. Orla's rifle cracked. A foreleg went slack. The stalker tumbled. The pack flowed around the obstacle like smoke. "Low lances," Cade called. Shock arced. 2 stalkers screamed at a frequency men felt more than heard and broke left. The limper came on. Not hungry, angry. It hit the slab hard enough to drive Rick back half a step. Hesh compensated without being told. The wall held. Vale wasn't there, and then he was, stepping into a seam between bodies the way a hand slips into a pocket it knows. The blade wasn't metal. It felt like cold glass and moved like a hinge. He cut once, an odd angle stroke, and the stalker collapsed, twitching, suddenly smaller than it had been. Riley stared. Where did he? Cade's palm landed on his shoulder. "Eyes on the line," he said, not unkind. The pack peeled off when it saw the meat here came with cost. The yard exhaled. Stitch counted pulses like beads. Reich nudged the dead stalker with a boot and spat. "We keep the hide," he said. "Make a sheath for the slab." Do it, Jacob said. Maeve already stood at the rail, writing something only she would read. What are you logging? Cole asked. The way they stand when they hear their own callers die, she said. People with live callers hold their jaw like this. She tightened hers, shoulders high, eyes flicking for the man with the button. She relaxed. Dead bands stand like this, like they belong to themselves again. You think anyone else sees it? They will, Maeve said. That's the point. Chapter 4. The Ledger. They took the new Ashbourne to town because you don't build a legend by hiding it. Dead bands sat dull around 12 throats. The burn beneath was a secret between the ranch and the ones who pressed the ember. The valley would learn the second half at a dawn down the road. In the trading dome, people made space without knowing why. A line of dead collars in daylight bent crowds like heat. Maeve pinned a fresh sheet to the board with 2 small nails. Names and dates, no reasons. A header in clean black type they'd cut from a ribbon saved for births. Live callers control. Dead callers belong. A woman with a canister on her hip read the names without moving her lips. We know Havel, she said. He stitched my boy after the pitfall. They collared him for stealing bandages from the clinic. Truth, Stitch said, bowing like a man embarrassed to be thanked. She looked at his band, dead LEDs, scuffs, and then at the faint burned ring beneath. That yours forever? It's mine until dawn, Stitch said. Then it's a scar. Scars don't lie. She stepped back to let him pass. Not deference, not fear. Room. Outside, a deputy leaned against a pillar, heel dug into soft concrete. He clocked the line of bands and stiffened. You turning criminals into soldiers? He asked. Cade didn't slow. We're turning men into men. Looks like a paramilitary, the deputy said. Looks like belonging, Riley answered, the word fitting better than he expected. Cole's gaze slid to the council dome. Celine Vera stood in the doorway shade, speaking with Breck. She didn't hide. She gestured, delicate, precise movements, like a surgeon explaining a procedure the patient had already consented to without understanding the words. Her eyes tracked the dead bands, and she smiled a little. Interested. Hypothesis confirmed. Planning the next one. Chapter 5. Water Law. The council reconvened in air that felt already argued in. Ward 3 had breath because the McCallisters diverted flow last night. Ward 5 wrote a petition with their fingernails in the table and brought it at dawn, paper damp with rage. Breck looked like a man yelled at by more people than his salary required. Celine looked like she'd eaten well and been yelled at by no one at all. Ward 3 logged 6 heat strokes last night, Breck said, voice raw. 2 didn't wake. If draw slips again tonight, it won't be petitions on my desk. It'll be bodies. The council recognizes right of public draw in emergency, Breck added, trying authority and getting echo. We caution that no private citizen may raise a private army to obstruct lawful access. We didn't, Jacob said. We raised men. Celine's smile remained polite. Mr. McCallister, we applaud your creative use of Statute 48B. However, a uniformed force in the field. They're wearing work clothes, Maeve said. Band stayed because we didn't hide. The appearance, Selene continued, poses a stability risk. Xenocorp will propose a stability oversight. Compact to ensure public safety until Ward 3's crisis concludes. Riley laughed, sharp. You'll hire guns to stop us hiring hands. Language matters, Celine said. That aquifer could stabilize 5 refugee domes in low Earth orbit. Smart valves, loss under 2%, Tax relief across 3 wards. One family cannot be the cork in that bottle and call it mercy. So does the truth, Cole said. Celine looked at him the way a cat looks at a leaf caught in a draft. Truth, she said, is seldom a single object. It's the shape left on a tray after everyone at the table eats what they want. She turned to Breck. The compact will include light rules of engagement, no lethal force. Scoped floodlights and compliance foam only. Floodlights? Maeve asked, something tightening. Celine tipped her head. To keep the night honest. Keth clicked once, almost inaudible. Vale's eyes lowered just enough that only Lyra noticed. Breck cleared his throat. We'll take the compact under advisement. You'll accept it by morning, Celine said, and smiled. She wasn't wrong. Chapter 6. The Valve. Dusk slid down the ridge like a blade sheathed slow. Cade walked the berm once with his helmet off, feeling wind with his scalp. Scylla snugged a hose clamp and told the rover she'd be back, how she always spoke to machines she needed to love her. Fen checked batteries by touch. Vale stood where the light frayed and let it pass through him until he understood how this night wanted to be cut. A skimmer came low over Valve House 7 with a sound like rain on tin. It loitered. A second ghosted the ridgeline like a carrion bird too fat to fly well. Floodlights stayed dark, not yet. Cade had the red oath in the berm before dust settled. Reich set the slab, Hesh set his. Orla found a notch in the sandbag wall to see a pilot's wrist, but not his eyes. Bran flexed line between thumb and forefinger, like tasting a current for salt. Scylla backed the rover into a slot. If we run, she said, we run loud. Not tonight, Cade said. Cole crouched beside him. Riley knelt at the flood valve, fingers twitching with a thief's need to turn. Keth laid a palm on the valve house, like soothing a nervous animal. Stitch's medbag sat open, bandages like folded snow. Vale wasn't there. He was where light wasn't. The first skimmer drifted lower. A speaker voice wore a sprayed-on sheen of authority. You're obstructing public access. Stand clear. Cade stood and didn't raise his weapon. Private infrastructure under public draw at owner's discretion. State your intent. Stability compact, the voice said. Observe and secure. Step away from the valve. No, Cade said. The skimmer nosed closer. The second swung out, drawing a line to box the berm from 2 angles if they chose. Lights, the speaker said. Floodlights snapped on. The desert turned into a stage. Every mound was a mark, every flaw a cue. Vale's outline hardened and broke. He flattened a fraction, a shadow deciding where to lie. The beam cut his umbra. He stepped back into the seam where 2 sandbags left night. Down, Cade said. The line sank like a single animal crouching to spring. The skimmer's belly opened. A crate fell, unfolded, and threw a hollow in the hard light. Temporary draw manifold. Council oversight. Again, Riley muttered. Label makes it theirs. Paper makes cowards brave, Cade said. Do not interfere, the speaker said. Reich glanced at Jacob, who stood with hands at his sides, as if walking fence to see if a wire had fallen. This is your only warning, the voice said. Step back. Jacob didn't. Out there, your property, he said, to the men and the skimmer and himself. With us, you're Ashborn. No answer. Maybe they didn't hear. Maybe they couldn't. Orla's rifle cracked. A floodlight blew, white seed scattering. The second light swung to find its dead brother. Vale slid under its beam and was at the crate, a hand on a cable no one else had seen, a flick where no knife should fit. The hollow died. The crate slumped. Strings cut. Non-lethal, Cade warned. Working on it, Brand said. The harpoon hissed. A pilot jerked sideways and off his harness, hitting sand like a heavy fish forgetting water. A new voice came over the speaker. Celine, closer. Enough, she said. Stand down. Your point is made. No, Jacob said. My point is lived. Silence. Floodlight shadows swam in dust like fish under ice. The first skimmer rose 3 meters. The second followed. The crate sat sad and harmless. Observe and report, Celine said soft to her pilot and clicked the mic off. They left without taking what they came to take. Not a victory. A notice served without paper. Riley rolled his shoulders. We should have shot them down. And then, Cade asked. Then we hold a funeral, Riley said. He grinned without humor. Maybe 2. Live long enough, and you'll get your chance, Cade said. No need to sprint to it. Jacob watched until the skimmers were small, and then nothing. Wind shifted. The night took its shape again. Keep them ready, he said. We're going to need the wall. Chapter 7. Labels. In the morning, Celine filed a notice stuffed with words that behaved in public. It named the Red Oath an unregistered armed auxiliary and a stabilization liability in proximity to strategic assets. It suggested enforcement and tallied zeros to move the valley from blood to ink. Deputies brought it to the porch in a folder, with a seal peeling at a corner where a coffee cup had sat. Maeve read it in the sun with dust in her throat. She laughed once, not because anything was funny. They'll call us a private army until the word sticks. Riley took the paper, flipped it, and wrote with a carpenter's pencil. He handed it back. Maeve read, nodded, and walked to the bunkhouse. She tacked the notice by the sink where men washed and hung dead bands to dry. Under corporate language, a line in block letters. Control is their creed. Belonging is ours. Freedom is earned. Men stood and read in turn. No one spoke. You don't talk when you put your hand on a stove to see how hot it is. You know. Cole found Jacob by the pump. You going to answer her? I answered at the valve, Jacob said. She'll come back. She will, Jacob said. So will we. In the council glass, Celine watched the wind chart the ridge. They built a wall, she said to no one, and made a note. Walls have doors you cannot see in floodlight. Chapter 8. Ember. They ran 2 more ashings that week, men who'd waited in the dark parts of Phobos for a ride that came late. Ritual didn't change. It shouldn't. That's why it works. Say it, Jacob said. I hold the line. I don't break the herd. I don't turn on blood. Hand on the fire. They pressed. Pain came. Lights died. The band sat heavy. The burn sealed. Jacob's hand said what his mouth didn't need to. Belong. Lyra watched the ember burn the world into the shapes people chose. The heat didn't touch her, not the way it touched the others. Something under the valley answered the pulse, faint, like a heartbeat behind a wall, and she listened with the part of herself that never learned to speak. Maeve inked names. Cade counted how long each man paused and how long he stepped forward. Keth adjusted a wire, a coil, a frequency. Riley watched like a boy at fireworks waiting for the one that would blow apart bigger than the rest and scare him into laughing. After, Maeve walked the new hands through the ledger. Names, dates, no reasons. If town asks what you did, tell them you worked the line and your caller is dead. If they ask how you'll earn freedom, say you serve your winters. The rest is between you and the stone. Orla cleaned her rifle. Stitch cleaned his hands. Bran oiled line. Scylla tuned the rover so the engine note blended with a dust devil's growl at 100 meters. Daco labeled a crate he'd already labeled. Hesh knelt by his beads. Fen copied numbers twice and checked them thrice. Vale cooked stew and moved quiet, watching everything with the attention of a man who learned patience because no other gift kept him alive. Jacob walked the line of dead bands and counted without counting, nodding once like a man who found a number that satisfied. For now. Chapter 9. What Comes with Light. The first floodlight raid came on a moonless night when cold cut through coat and skin, and the best thing a man could do was work or drink. Skimmers came low and quiet until the lights hit. The world turned white. Shadows ran. Cade was awake. The Red Oath knew where their boots were. They moved like a thought had 1,000 times. Reich set the slab. Hesh set his. Keth turned his face from the light and listened to the fence anyway. Orla shot blind once, not to hit, to make a pilot flinch. Scylla killed rover lights and rolled backwards slow enough to look like a trick of the wind. Vale disappeared. The beam scissored left-right, an angler afraid of water. The pilot was good. He'd hunted men before. He put the light where a man should be if he wanted him to die under his own shadow. He missed Vale because there was no Vale where light expected a man. There was a seam where dust didn't take light correctly, a refusal in air. A trooper stepped off the skid to plant a marker and tripped. Brand's harpoon sang. The man went down, breathing and angry and confused. Non-lethal, Cade reminded, an old prayer with new teeth. Stitch dragged the trooper behind the berm and tied his wrists with a bandage. "You'll get this back when I'm done," he said, polite as a banker. The skimmers made 2 passes and left with lights burning and pride dented. After images hung like white ghosts where men had been. Cole counted heads. All there. He looked for Jacob and found him leaning on the pump, breath smoking in the cold. "They'll come with paper next," Jacob said. "When paper fails, they'll come with men who don't flinch at the sound of their own boots." "And us?" Cole asked. "We'll be here," Jacob said. Lyra came out of the dark and took Cole's elbow with cool fingers. "The hum is rising," she said. "The architect's nerves are remembering what noise feels like." "Will they help us?" Cole asked. "They don't understand help," Lyra said. "They understand survival." "Same thing," Riley said, grinning. Lyra looked at him like at a photograph she might someday recognize. Chapter 10. Dawn. Breck posted the compact at dawn, the page lifted in the wind. Someone had painted "No" in red across the first paragraph, and someone else had scrubbed it before Breck came out. Compacts cared about how they looked. Jacob read it without changing his face. Maeve read and chewed her lip. Riley read it aloud, in a tone that made the words sound like a joke that wasn't. "They're going to push again," Cade said. "Harder." "They will," Jacob said. Maeve pinned another sheet beside the compact. 3 lines. "Control is their creed. Belonging is ours. Freedom is earned." People stopped. Some smiled. Some spat. Some nodded at dead bands walking past and made room. Cole stood with his back to the board and watched the square like men who expect knives do. Elias Navarro watched Maeve from the edge with the look of a man who made a choice and was waiting to learn if it would kill him or save his breath. Celine's aide left the council door with a folder and walked toward the skimmer pad. Cole counted steps from law to power. Lyra arrived without sound. "You believe your words," she said, reading without moving her lips. "We have to," he said. "It's easier while the ring is hidden," she said. "Harder when it shows." "Then we'll believe harder." She nodded as if copying a formula that might prove true later. Chapter 11. The Last Page Today. Night dropped cold and clean. Jacob walked to the oath stone and set his palm on it. He didn't call a circle. He didn't call anyone. The pump thumped steady behind him. Cole found him there by accident, the way a son finds his father when he isn't looking. He stood without speaking until he had to. You ever think we should have done this another way? No, Jacob said. You didn't even consider it. I considered it, Jacob said. And then I remembered who I am. Cole watched the horizon where red met black. You going to tell me who I am? He tried to laugh and almost made it. No, Jacob said. You're going to show me. He lifted his hand from the stone, its roughness printed into his skin like a truth. He took a breath and looked at the house he'd built, towers he'd raised, fences that cut wind into lines he could hold, a herd that would trample a man who stood wrong and carry a man who stood right, men with dead bands who put their hands on the fire and said the words. Tomorrow we draft pump schedules for winter, he said, practical as gravity. Tomorrow we train again. Tomorrow we make a thing so simple, even a magistrate can't pretend not to see it. What thing? That we belong, Jacob said, and that freedom is earned. He walked back toward the dome. Cole stood a little longer, thinking about the price of simple things. Far over the ridge, small and dim, a skimmer light winked and went out. The dark held. The pump did not. Dust hissed along posts. The herd shifted in their sleep, old machinery cycling down before waking meaner and more stubborn. Cole set his palm on the stone. It felt cold as bone. I'll show you, he said, to the rock, to the man, to the valley, to the thing under the floor that was learning his name. I'll show you. He turned, and the night seemed to turn with him. Ranch lights looked like teeth in a mouth ready to bite and not spit. In the morning, they would work. In the afternoon, they would drill. In the evening, they would take a notice to the valve and lay it on a crate and write 3 words in the sand with a boot toe. No more collars. Not today. Not yet. Today, the words were enough.
Control is their creed. Belonging is ours. Freedom is earned.